Someone want to get him?
Where is Jerry?
I don't know. In his office.
Probably.
It's all gonna fall. This is the worst little lip of
Backlog bad.
backlog. Bad.
Gotcha.
Jail population.
Okay.
I mean, currently.
Right. Good.
Y'all can stand over on the other side of the monitor because we don't want to block this monitor. That would be terrible. All right. Tommy, wherever you want to sit. You want to stand with them? It doesn't matter.
Tommy's going to be doing most of the talking.
Yeah, right. You want to start? You want to kick us off? Perfect. Thank y'all for being here. Really appreciate it. Obviously, we have great news today. I know you'll have a lot of questions, so I don't want to delay. Sean,
Okay.
take it away.
Thank you all for being here. We're here to announce that the thing we've been talking about since long before I became DA, the backlog is officially over. We have now gotten to the point where our cases per court are lower than they were in 2016. The backlog has been something that we've talked about since, quite frankly, I came back to this office as a division chief in January of 2017. It was such a huge part of my campaign and the things that the public spoke about over and over. My announcement to run was focused almost exclusively on the backlog. And there's so many reasons that it was critical to reduce it. The jail population. Through no fault of the sheriff's office, the Harris County Jail was one of the most dangerous jails in the country because of overcrowding, directly related to the backlog. The average length of stay in that jail was so high that people could not get out. The victims and the survivors and their families were waiting years and years and years for justice. And justice delayed is justice denied. But it wasn't just the victims and the survivors. It was the accused as well. Their cases would pend for years while they still were either out on bond or in custody, not able to move on. Having them be able to have their day in court in a meaningful time matters. And so we've got so many different numbers, and I don't want to really spend all of our time initially in that, because these aren't numbers. The backlog is not numbers. The families, the survivors, they're people. Every single one of these is reflecting a group of people, the accused and the victims, who have to deal with this in a real, meaningful way. And those of us that are here have the honor to be able to get to know them and really understand their pain in a meaningful way. The first graphic that I really want to show is our average pending cases in the criminal district courts. Right? I mean, you look at 2021, we were at 52,000 cases pending. That is incredible. But what's the most important is to look at per court. When you see the number inside the bar, in 2016, we had 904 cases pending in each of our criminal district courts. That means that for 3 prosecutors, you have 904 cases to divide up. That's 904 victims, 904 defendants that you have to know, that you have to work through. That was an impossible task in and of itself. But by 2021, we were at over 2,300 for the same number of prosecutors. As of this month, we're down to 728 per court. That means everything happens not only faster, but better, more efficiently, and with more personal contact with our survivors and our victims. We're down 70% since 2021. That is an incredible, incredible number. We also need to talk about the age of these cases. I've already said it, but justice delayed is justice denied. In 2021, 35% of the cases in every one of our courts was pending for over a year. Now, of course, there are cases that are complex that cannot be tried in a year, but 35% of every one of our cases was pending for more than a year. That's people in custody, that's people on bond, that is loved ones of victims waiting for their day in court. This month, we are down to 17% of all cases penned more than a year. That is more than 80%. That's 83% of the cases where victims, survivors, and the accused get their day in court in a meaningful time. And we're going to get back to all of these numbers. But as I said, these stats aren't numbers. They're people. They're our communities. They're our friends. They're our families. They're our loved ones. And so I want to just take a minute and bring up someone who I have really become extraordinarily fond of and close with, Lynn McMullen. Her son, Joe, was killed in 2023 in an extraordinarily tragic case. I don't think there's anyone that can truly talk about what it feels like to go through this like Lynn. She advocated from, I think, the first week I got into this job in a way that really moved me and informed me. And so now that she is on the other side of this process, certainly not on the other side of the grieving, but she's on the other side of this process, I think she is in a unique position to explain to you all what the delays do to our victims and our families. So Lynn, will you come up and say a few things?
A few might be difficult.
Well, all the time.
Thank you. So first, District Attorney Tier, and to the entire office, thank you. Thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for this opportunity. I never imagined, as any mother shouldn't have to imagine, that horrible morning for us when we found out that Joe had been killed by a drunk driver in April of '23. And you know, to have that in itself is all that I thought I would be dealing with, right? How do I live? How do I go on without Joseph? How does my family? Because Joe was a part of this community. It's not just Lynn, his mother, and Chris's father, and his brother, and his aunts. And it's not that the family, it's a bigger part of the community. He was an active member in Houston and dedicated to things that were right and committed himself to helping others. And this community lost someone. So as we entered this judicial system, I was not accepting of the fact that the excuses that were provided were that we wouldn't see a trial for 2 years plus, 2+ years, because of Harvey and because of COVID. And I'm like, that was unacceptable to me. First of all, because I needed justice for Joe. But the other part is my life had moved on, right? I wasn't backlogged and having trouble post-Harvey, post-COVID. So I couldn't accept that. And I pushed, and I pushed, and I pushed. But it really was, and Sean says when he took it, when he came into office, but I actually was following him during his campaign because I wanted to know who was coming, who the candidates were, and who was going to bring change to the office. And it was really in January of last year that finally we saw the case moving forward. There were no more delays that were happening, and I want to talk about not just for myself and my family, what it's like to be, our trial was in October of '23, let me first say that, and the someone that killed our son is now serving 11 years and 14 days. That Joseph was born on November 14th, and the jury honored him and us by sentencing her to 11 years and 14 days, and I know where she is now, right? I know where she is, and she hopefully will be there for the full time. But for those 2.5 years that she was bonded out, which was our judicial system allows that, her life continued on, and ours didn't. She celebrated her mother's day, her father's day, her birthdays. She went on. Her bond conditions were so much that she couldn't drink or be out at night, but I don't drink and I don't go out at night. Her life went on. Mine didn't. Joe's didn't. So when we finally reached that day that the guilty verdict was handed down and then the sentence came the next court day, I, for the first time, felt relief and love. And I mean, that's hard to describe, but I was so focused on that justice needed to happen for Joe, for our family, for Joe's community, that I finally could feel again a different way. And I want that for other victims. I want that for other mothers and fathers. And I attend the Parents of Murdered Children meeting at Crime Stoppers, and it's almost difficult to talk about it now to them, to let the other parents know, because some of them aren't there yet. Some of them don't have their someone. Some of them don't have a court trial date, and they're in that limbo period. And I want to be able to share with them that what this feels like to be on this side of that justice has happened. So when I heard that the numbers were down and that the backlog is coming down, I feel like as a mother and as a member of this community, it's the right direction, and I am pleased and impressed and happy. And I can't go without saying, let's keep bringing them down, as I know that this office and administration will continue to do that. But it's just real important that that we as victims and as parents of victims and loved ones of victims have justice served. And I feel like the streets are a lot safer that she's now in TDC and not out possibly risking and bringing harm to others. And I know many other victims and loved ones would feel the same way, because unfortunately not everybody who bonds out reforms themselves, right? So I think that's it. Thank you, Sean. Yes, thank you.
So we're going to go to what this does to jail population and why that matters to public safety. But before we do that, we're standing here and quite frankly, the DA's office is the tip of the spear in attacking the backlog and attacking jail population. But it cannot and is not a vacuum. We could not do this without the investment in more prosecutors, more courts, better infrastructure, and support that we have gotten from our Commissioners Court. They gave us a supplemental budget last year of 7.5 million. And that's an amazing historic number. And it went directly to more prosecutors in more specialty areas, more victim assistance coordinators, more support staff. And that's a huge number. But what they also did is continue that in our budget going forward. So it wasn't a stopgap measure. They care about building public safety on top of that. That translates to $18.3 million in the next budget. And they are going to and have committed to doing that as well. And so while I, as I hope you know, love to take credit for anything possible, I can't and we can't do this alone. And so to have Commissioner Garcia here means so much to me, as someone that I've looked up to from the time he was the sheriff and I was just a young baby prosecutor. That I would like for him to say a few words, and just for me to be able to say to our entire Commissioners Court and to our whole ecosystem, thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. Good morning, and Lynn, God bless you. God keep you and your family, and just know that we're still here with you. We got your back. And I want to thank District Attorney Sean Tier, the entire District Attorney's Office. I also want to recognize Chief Tommy Diaz on behalf of Sheriff Ed Gonzalez. But I want to also send a direct shout out to your felony prosecutors who are really the champions of today's announcement. And so thank you to the entire office. But addressing the backlog has been a priority of mine since I was sheriff. Back then, although we had a soft on crime Republican Commissioners Court that refused to invest in moving cases through the system quickly. Only recently have those who are out of power in Harris County seemed to care about how long it took for victims to get justice. Today, we have proof smart investments in the criminal justice system actually work. Specifically, $66 million in ARPA dollars, and as the district attorney just mentioned, the annual $18.3 million out of general funds that are helping to sustain the progress that we are announcing today. This money is providing a major return on investment to the citizens of Harris County, specifically to our survivors and to our victims and those who are accused. To reduce the backlog, jail population, and the average time it takes to hear a case to a level not seen before Hurricane Harvey. Every Harris County resident should be very proud. To those who want to use anecdotal stories to make a political point while ignoring the important progress we've made, shame on you. Survivors of crime only want one thing, and we've heard it. They want justice. And they want it to happen as quickly as possible. And I hope today they and you, Lynn, your family, can rest a little easier. Today, I'm proud to join District Attorney Sean Tier, Chief Tommy Diaz on behalf of Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, and to all of those folks who have worked tirelessly to help us get to this particular point. All that to say is that to all the folks who have been asking for us to deal with system breakdowns and slowdowns, we heard you, and we have let our actions speak for themselves. And on behalf of all of Harris County residents, I want to say again, thank you to the District Attorney for your incredible work and leadership. Harris County is absolutely safer because we came together to focus on a common problem. Additionally, I want to thank members of our judiciary for their hard work as well. The district court judges who have effectively managed the largest dockets are Judges Tavaya Bell, Judge Peneghy, Judge Cornelio, and Judge Warner, a bipartisan group of judges working hard and working together to bring justice to victims and the accused. And you know, as the old sheriff, I can't help but say this point. And for those who have been found guilty, they're finding themselves going to TDCJ prisons much faster than before. I kind of like that. While we're celebrating this win, it doesn't mean we are done. Reaching the pre-Harvey levels is an important milestone, but we still have work to do. Too many cases still languish without resolution for far too long, and we need to get to a point that we are no longer outsourcing inmates and cases are being disposed of in a much shorter time. So again, congratulations. We all have more work to do, but today is an incredible announcement on behalf of the safety of all of Harris County residents. Thank you, Mr. District Attorney.
So now, I know that Courtney was dying to get to our third slide, jail population. I want to take a minute and talk about why jail population matters and how we got here. So jail population has gone down significantly from the height of all heights, which was in February of 2025, and we were at 9,810. That's not just a number. That is 9,810 people that are in custody, the vast majority of them having not been convicted of a crime yet. And Tanya Mills, who does not want to speak on camera any more than she has to, but is here and has to be recognized, because I don't think there is an individual in the state of Texas, at least, that understands jail population better than her, that understands all the causes and effects of it better than her. And Tanya, we couldn't have had this success without you. And it's important to note, this is not because the DA's office is dismissing more cases. In fact, we've dismissed less cases than 2024. This is not about giving less punishment when it's appropriate. This is about doing things, seeking justice for survivors and victims in a meaningful time frame. This is about empowering those felony and even misdemeanor prosecutors that Commissioner Garcia just talked about appropriately, giving them the ability to do what they have sworn to do, letting them do what they believe is right and fulfilling their oath. When you have line prosecutors who have the training, who have the support, and who know that their oath can be fulfilled, this is what you see. You see more people going to TDC when it's appropriate in a time frame that matters. You see more cases being disposed of. And that's why this jail population matters. We are down to 8,300, and tell me, what is it?
What's that?
8,363 as of today. That is a massive decrease, because we have been paying $54 million of our county money every year to outsource people, to bus people to prisons awaiting trial. It slows it down even more because they can't communicate with their defense attorneys. They can't get back for court settings. And so all it does is compound an already exacerbated system. So shrinking the jail docket gives victims, gives survivors, gives families the opportunity to get that justice in a meaningful time. So this number is such a massive drop. It's over 12% reduction. And as I've said from the very beginning, my goal, and one that I will achieve with the help of every single person in this office and the stakeholders, is we will stop outsourcing from the Harris County Jail within the next year. We will completely cancel all of the contracts because we will be getting people their day in court in a meaningful time. And so I think, so one other thing, now that Tommy is here and Sheriff Gonzalez truly needs to be commended for this. For the first time in more than a year, the Harris County Jail passed its state inspection. It's now in compliance with state standards. I don't think that people outside of our small ecosystem understand what a monumental success that is. And that matters to the accused that are locked up. That matters to those families. Because the Harris County Jail has been a very dangerous place because of overcrowding. Because, quite frankly, the Sheriff's Department just could not keep up. But because we've all worked together and because of the Herculean effort of Sheriff Gonzalez, Chief Deputy Diaz, and all of his team, I'm so proud to just reinforce that incredible announcement from last week. Congratulations. None of this could be possible without the prosecutors here, without Denise Nichols reimagining intake and changing the way that we accept charges. It's not that we're saying no to charges, it's we're saying yes to the right charge. We are going back to being a resource to law enforcement on the streets when they call, the way it was when Sheriff Gonzalez, Commissioner Gonzalez, and back then HPD Officer Gonzalez was working and calling and trying to figure out what charge to file. That's the benefit of intake. That's where we're back to. If you're charging the right case from the beginning, it's a lot shorter to the time of disposition. And so Denise Nichols and every one of our prosecutors who is working at intake as an extra shift, signing up, because every one of them is a prosecutor in a court handling cases again, as it was when intake was really working well. That is one of the big reasons for this. The prosecutors that are here, working every day, grinding through this, it couldn't happen without them. And Commissioner Garcia absolutely touched on this. Our judiciary, they have been maligned for years. They are the one group that can't push back. Ethically, they can't fight back. I am here to tell you, as I have said, they are in this building every single day working. We could not do this without the judiciary that is on the bench right now, every one of them. They are all doing their part and then some, working through it. You will never hear from this administration a negative word about the judiciary. We may disagree on things, that is part of our job. But we will do so professionally, and we will also recognize them when it's deserved. And this reduction in jail population, average length of stay, and total cases, a lot of the credit needs to go to them as well. Okay, our final slide. Average length of stay. This is one that really goes under the radar, but if you're looking at any one indicator of the way to attack jail population, length of time to disposition, and really the health of the criminal justice system, I don't know if there's a better stat than average length of stay for someone in custody before their case is disposed of. We have dropped, let me just make sure I get the number right. We were at a height of 188 days in March of 2025. We're down to 156. That means that is 30 less days per defendant that sits in jail before their case is disposed. And you talk about we still have some work to do. That is not anywhere near what the average is around the state of Texas. We've got to get lower, and we will. But dropping by 30 days for every single person in there, that's a huge, huge drop. I've said this a number of times while we were working through this. This press conference is not a mission accomplished moment. This is a great start. This is a historic change. But there is nothing, as Lynn said, to suggest that we can be done now. There's so much more to do. We've come in and we have done some incredibly great work, and I am so proud of the almost 1,000 people that work in the DA's office. I'm so proud of all of our stakeholders who have collaborated to get us here. But now is the time to double down. Now is the time to strike while the iron is hot and make sure that we can cancel that last contract. Make sure that we can get more survivors and more victims and more families to know that this matters and give them that sense of relief. And to make sure that we're doing this the right way, to make sure that we're still increasing our mental health diversions. We're working with addiction specialists from around the country to get programs to stop the recidivism on top of this. There are so many different programs out there that we have got to work through, because the best way to do this is to get people out of the system entirely. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions for anybody. I would recommend asking as many as possible to Tanya and Tommy, who love to speak, but I'm absolutely here, as is, I know, Commissioner Garcia. Yes, ma'am. Hi.
It's Sarah with ABC 13. Congratulations on
Thank you.
this achievement. Can you talk a little bit more about how y'all were able to get to this point? I mean, it sounds like the funding, more prosecutors, but yeah, kind of touch a little more.
Sure. It's a team effort inside the building. Really starts with empowering prosecutors. You look at our trial tempo. We have tried more cases through the first 3 months of this year than we did at any point previously. Last year, we tried more cases than we've tried at any point at least since 2015. And make no mistake, trials drive reductions. Getting those cases to trial results in so many other cases being disposed of. I think that is one of the biggest things that we've done, truly empowering the prosecutors to know, if you have a case you believe in, go to trial. There's nothing more paralyzing to a prosecutor who handles a caseload than to worry that if you wind up with a result that you didn't think was going to happen, or you make a mistake, then you're going to be in trouble. If you feel like you're getting supported from the people above you, you will do what you think is right. And that's, I know it is not something that we can tangibly talk about, but having been a prosecutor for over 15 years in the trenches, that is the thing that you want. And if you have it, you go. And we are seeing the direct result of that. I think intake is another critical component to this. Having the ability And part of the historic investment from Commissioners Court was to be able to pay our prosecutors to work overtime, to work from 12 midnight to 8 a.m. and then come right back to work at 8 a.m. But if you are in the courts and you're handling the cases that you're advising law enforcement on, you know what cases need to be filed. You know what evidence you need in order to file it. And you're advising officers, so we're getting better cases from the very beginning. We're teaching law enforcement on the scene the part of it that we need. You know, the law and order of two separate but equal parts. It is true, but we have to work together and collaborate. Both sides need to understand what the other side needs. And that wasn't happening for a number of years here. And so having real prosecutors working with law enforcement has sped up the process significantly. And again, the judiciary is holding both sides' feet to the fire. We can't try these cases without the judiciary. So they need a big kudos as well.
Sean, I was going to ask kind of on the judiciary front, what could you say to what are the judges doing, whether it's like issuing higher bonds or whether your super prosecutors asking for maybe higher bond amounts to keep those violent criminals within jail until that case is tried and gone through? Can you talk about what do you attribute that part of the success to?
So I think that for far too long, we have been, as a state, right, because this is a state law issue. For far too long, we've been beholden to the bail bond system, and it's an antiquated way to go about it. We're the only developed nation in the world that still relies on cash bail, including the federal government. We should be doing what we're now able to do because of the last legislative session, in some cases, where we get to have a hearing and say in certain enumerated offenses, Your Honor, we think that this individual is either too dangerous to the community, to law enforcement, to the victims, to be let back out, or they're a flight risk. And at that point, the judge has the ability, and we've been successful in a number of cases, to hold them at no bond, regardless of their criminal history or anything else. We need to get to that point across the board. It goes back to whether or not the judiciary has been inappropriately maligned. In the vast majority of cases, and when you look across the board, the bonds in the last 5 to 7 years have been higher for felonies than they were before that. What is something we certainly should look at, and one of the reasons the law passed a few years ago, is the bail bond industry. We're giving people bonds at 1% and giving payment plans. That is strictly people that are looking to make money off poor people's backs. So I think to say that this is because of anything to do with bail is probably not right. I know that it's a catchphrase and it's buzz, but this is the hard work of the judges, the hard work of the prosecutors, the hard work of law enforcement, the hard work of everyone involved to actually go after the cases, whether someone's on bond or not, which is that second graph we looked at and why that matters. That's not average length of stay in jail. That's not jail population. That is someone on bond. But we only have 17% of our cases now penned for more than a year, which matters. Getting the case regardless to trial or to a disposition in a meaningful time. Is that? Gotcha. Thank you.
You said it's not as much about dismissing cases. However, during the first 10 months of your administration, you dismissed twice as much as your predecessor did for the same time frame. So how is it not part of it?
I don't think it was 10 months, but certainly the beginning first half of the first year was a significant reduction because Okay. Nicole, you're in this courthouse a lot. 2024 in this building was a very difficult time for any prosecutor to resolve a case in any way, shape, or form. When we got in 2024, or in 2025, we had to work through that. And that was something that we always knew we were going to have to work through, and we did. And we did it, I think, in a very meaningful time frame. But I will also tell you that during that same time frame, where we were disposing of cases with dismissals that should have been dismissed long before that, the number of people sitting in the Harris County Jail awaiting transport to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice went up by 50%. So we were not only dismissing cases that absolutely needed to go, we were sending people to prison at a much higher rate than the former administration. So all it really goes to show is that we are disposing of cases. We are working through the cases and getting to the resolution in a meaningful time frame.
Do you think that with prosecutorial discretion, that kind of contributes to being able to reduce the caseloads for everybody?
No question. That is the number one reason. Giving prosecutors not just the lip service of prosecutorial discretion, but standing here and letting them know that that's my job, is to stand here and explain to the public decisions that may not always be popular, that may not always be politically beneficial to me, but to do it as long as they believe in what they're doing. That's their job. Their job is to follow the oath, not to me, not to this office, but to the community, to see that justice is done in every case. And when prosecutors truly believe that, that's when you start to see historic reductions like this.
And so with the caseload, you're going by average per court. And so with the addition of new courts, that would have impacted the average, correct?
Certainly.
And so why go by the average rather than the total number of pending cases, which would have shown that the backlog was reduced in September of last year?
Right. And it was, and it is. But going by the average in each court matters to the prosecutors working in that court. That's why per court matters the most. Total is the total, and we can just look at the total. But when we had 22 courts, that number per court was so much higher that it was still a crushing inundation, as opposed to now we are below the 2016 numbers, which gives each prosecutor the ability to get to know the McMullen family, to work through that. And so that's why having both numbers, the first graph was total numbers and the ones by court. No question, getting more courts matters. We need more courts. We absolutely do. But getting those courts for the first time since the 351st was commissioned in, I believe, 1982. Like, when you think about that, what the population of Harris County has done is incredible. So getting them there has changed it incredibly. So yes, that's why both of those numbers matter, total and per court.
And do your prosecutors, do they still feel overworked by the average caseload?
Look, when I started in felony, it was 2008, and I was in Susan Brown's court, our now administrative judge. I will never forget the day that her caseload, her average cases went above 500 for the first time ever. And she was freaked out. We were all freaked out. I felt incredibly overwhelmed. I don't think you can work in this job and be any good at it. I don't think you can be a prosecutor and care about victims and survivors at all and feel overwhelmed if you have 5 cases. So, yes, I know that they all still feel overwhelmed, but it is a less crushing weight now than it has been in a very long time.
Follow up on,
Sure.
you talked about prosecutors feeling overwhelmed. In all job markets, another buzzword you talk about is, or that we talk about is artificial intelligence. I mean, does that at all factor into y'all trying to reduce that caseload? If so, how?
Yeah, so there are tools that are out there for some kind of ancillary jobs of the prosecutors that we believe, after we do enough kind of testing on them, are going to be able to reduce the ancillary job, right? When you think of screening a case, meaning just kind of looking through it as an initial thing and summarizing it so that you can read it. When you think about summarizing criminal history so that we kind of have a look for it. When you think about getting the first blush of evidence in, knowing the things that you're going to need in every assault family member. You're going to look for body camera, you're going to ask for pictures, you're going to see if there's surveillance, the offense report, those kind of things that right now is a strain on our prosecutors. It is a strain on our support staff. It is a strain on our investigators. Those are the kind of tools that we envision helping our prosecutors streamline their job in the future. I'm never going to be of the opinion that we should let AI write our closing arguments or the directs of a victim or something like that, which is where I do want to get our prosecutors more time and give them more ability to sit down and craft their trials and work through them. Because right now, even with just 700 cases, they're still inundated with a lot of the ancillary things that get a case to where it's ready to be disposed of. Not that it's ready to be tried, but we've fulfilled our requirements under Brady and Michael Morton and all of the discovery issues. Those are the things that I think AI can begin to help us on. But, you know, I can't believe I have to say it. I'm getting kind of to the age where I'm like, I don't know how much we're gonna be on the cutting edge of that, but we are certainly looking at it, and it's why I have young people like Chandler in my leadership.
I wanted to mention, sorry, 2 more things, quick things.
Sure.
But you mentioned the 17% of active cases that are still more than a year old, which is an improvement, but for the families that are still waiting, what is your message to them and why they are still waiting and what's being done to address that?
Yeah, my message to all of them, especially the ones that are waiting over a year, is that we're working. We're working so hard at this. There are cases, there are types of cases that are never going to be resolved in a year. We just now have more evidence than we've ever had. Think body cameras, think, you know, the way that we're going through DNA, ballistics, all of the other things that we have. But my commitment to all of those families and to all of these victims is that we're going to be much more communicative. We're going to explain the process from the very beginning. And I don't think you got that, Lynn, at the beginning. I don't think that so many of our families have had that ability to just understand why. You know, I can't tell you how many times over the course of my career, sitting down with a family and explaining why we need a delay has changed their perception, right? Because yes, they want to get to the relief side. They want to get across this part of their trauma, but they still want to see justice. And sometimes we need to slow it down to make sure that we're ready to go. And so my commitment is that we're trying and we're working with all of our stakeholders to keep making it better, but we will always let them know, as long as I'm here, why things are taking a long time. Oh,
last one.
yes.
I know, everybody's- but we recently reported there was a case where someone was charged with murder in 2023, but just before it went to trial, the case was dismissed, and this was three years later because of insufficient evidence.
Right.
So what are you doing to make sure that that doesn't keep happening?
And that is part of what we're doing. Part of the reason that it matters that we have enough bandwidth of the prosecutors to look at cases before it gets to trial, before it gets to that point, making that decision on not the front end, certainly, of a murder, but in a time frame with consultation and communication of the victim's family, well before you get to a point where you've got a jury out in the hall making that decision. That's where we've got to get to. That's one of the biggest reasons why reducing this per court number matters the most. That's one of the things that we are actively looking at. The dismissals on trial day has plummeted, but it, quite frankly, should be at zero. That's something that we've got to know before we set a case for trial. But because of the crushing caseloads that we've had, that hasn't been possible. And so continuing to work through this, it's one of the reasons that this is not we're done. This is we're moving in the right direction, and we have successfully gotten back to where we were. That's one of the reasons that this matters. And I read that story, and it's heartbreaking every single time. But yes, that's what we're working on.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank y'all.
Congrats, man. Good job. Proud of you. Proud of you.